Think about our planet for a second as this huge, intricate web. Every single species is a thread, and every connection between them makes the whole thing stronger. It's a fabric that, well, supports all of us. But what happens when those threads start to snap? We're going to dive into that, because right now that web is in real trouble. All right, so here's the game plan for this explainer. First up, we're going to get a handle on what this web of life actually is. Then we'll look at all the incredible things nature does for us, for free. After that, we have to tackle the tough stuff, humanity's growing shadow. But it's not all doom and gloom, I promise. We'll explore the efforts to mend the web, and we'll wrap it all up by asking a really big question about our own place in all of this. Okay, let's get right into it. Section 1, the web of life. Before we can really talk about what we're losing, we have to appreciate what's already here. And it all starts with the buzzing, thriving communities of life literally all around us. And the word for that is an ecosystem. It sounds kind of scientific, but really, all it means is a community. It's just a bunch of living things interacting with each other and with their environment. It could be a massive forest or something as tiny as a single drop of pond water. Each one is like a bustling city of life, completely interconnected. So, how does it all work? Well, it's all about energy. And it all kicks off with the sun. Plants, the producers, soak up that sunlight and turn it into food. Then along come the herbivores, the plant eaters, and they eat the plants. And you know what comes next. The carnivores, or secondary consumers, eat the herbivores. This simple flow of energy is what builds every single food chain and weaves that entire web of life together. So that's what an ecosystem is. But so what? What does it actually do? Well, that brings us to Section 2, nature's essential services. And this is where the big abstract idea of nature starts to get really personal. They're called ecosystem services. Honestly, you can just think of them as the planet's life support system. All the benefits that nature provides, totally free of charge. And we're not just talking about pretty views here. We're talking about tangible, critical services that keep our entire society functioning. Just think about it. The air you're breathing right now, probably filtered by a forest somewhere. The food you had for dinner, an insect probably pollinated it. Healthy ecosystems regulate our climate. They create fertile soil, and they give us the raw materials for so many medicines. These aren't just nice to haves. They are the absolute foundation of our civilization. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. We've gotten so used to all these services that we just take them for granted. We expect them to be there no matter what. We treat them like they're infinite. And that's a really dangerous assumption that's being tested like never before. Which brings us to a really difficult but really important part of this story. Humanity's growing shadow. We have to look honestly at the incredible pressure we're putting on the very systems that sustain us. And look, this alarm isn't new. Way back in 1992, thousands of the world's top scientists put out this warning, a collision course. That was over 30 years ago. The collision isn't some distant threat anymore. It's happening right now. Just look at this chart. It's pretty staggering. This represents the total weight of all mammals on Earth. 60% is our livestock, cows, pigs, you name it. 36% is us, humans. That leaves just 4%, that tiny little sliver for every wild mammal combined. Elephants, lions, whales, all of them. Just 4%. It shows the unbelievable scale of our dominance. Scientists have actually given this a name, the Holocene extinction. Our planet has had 5 mass extinctions before, from things like asteroid impacts. But this 6th one, well, it's different. This one's on us. And what really defines this crisis is the speed. Species are disappearing somewhere between 100 and 1,000 times faster than the natural normal rate. This isn't a slow, gradual change. It's a biological emergency. We are tearing threads from the web of life at a pace that's just unprecedented. So how are we doing this? Well, it's complex, but it boils down to a few big pressures. We're clearing forests for farms and cities. Our pollution from plastics, pesticides, and industries everywhere. We're consuming resources way faster than they can grow back. And we're moving species all around the planet to places where they just wreak havoc. To make this really concrete, think about this one number, 47%. Nearly half of all deforestation since the year 2000 was for just one thing, palm oil. It's a pretty stark reminder that the choices we make in the grocery store can have a devastating ripple effect across the world. Now, facing those facts can feel pretty overwhelming, I get it. But this is not where the story ends. This brings us to Section 4, mending the web. Because all across the globe, There are incredible people working to weave this web back together. Generally, conservation strategies fall into two big categories. You've got in-situ, which is a fancy way of saying we protect species right where they live, in their natural homes, like in national parks. And then there's ex-situ, which means protecting them outside of those habitats, in places like zoos or seed banks. Often that's a last resort. Both are absolutely vital tools. A great example of this in action is the Ramsar Convention. It's a global treaty specifically to protect wetlands, those marshes and mangroves that are so incredibly productive. And India has been a key player in this, designating dozens of its most critical wetlands for protection. And this is what that commitment looks like on the ground. You have amazing places like Chilika Lake and Kyodeo National Park, which were some of the first sites recognized way back in 1981. Then you have the Sundarbans, the world's largest mangrove forest, which is a critical habitat and a natural shield against storms. These aren't just lines on a map. They are real, active efforts to save these crucial pieces of the web. And this brings us to our final section, our moral compass. We've looked at the science, the impact, and the solutions. But underneath it all, there's a much deeper question. It's not just about what we can do, but about what we should do. This is really the core ethical question, isn't it? In a world with limited resources and so many competing needs, do we only have a responsibility to our own species? Or do other forms of life have a right to exist just for their own sake? Your answer to that probably puts you in one of two very different worldviews. Anthropocentrism is a human-centered view. It says nature is valuable because of what it provides to us. On the other hand, biocentrism is life-centered. It argues that every single living thing has its own value, its own right to exist, whether it's useful to us or not. And how you see that? Well, it shapes everything. This quote, even though it's from a totally different context, feels so relevant here. We've developed this immense technological power, right? The power to reshape the entire planet. But the question is whether our ethical maturity, our wisdom, has kept up. Have we become giants in our power, but stayed infants in our judgment? So what it all comes down to is this. We're now the most dominant thread in the entire web of life. We hold the power to tear it apart and also the power to start weaving it back together. And this final question isn't just for scientists or governments. It's for every single one of us. What is our role, and what are we going to choose for it to be?